Hello and welcome to Men with Funny Heads, a podcast for which the phrase, "I got a bad feeling about this," was invented. I am Wib, and I am joined by Longfang. How are you doing, Longfang?
Fuck you, Wib. I'm doing alright, How's yourself?
I am okay. I am okay.
We've both been having a time.
Yeah, this episode will be a few days late. Not that matters to people listening to it in the future, but, for those people waiting for it, I suppose it matters a little bit. We've both had weird sleep patterns and stuff.
Yup.
It's been a time. Finding a time at which we're both awake and able to record has been an issue.
We're actually in a form where we can communicate in multiple syllable fucking words and shit, you know.
I mean, what we could do is when we're in that kind of state, we could just start a podcast and do it a bit like the last one where we were, talking about Star Trek ships, but just go through like fictional characters and just give like a yay or nay as to whether we like them or not.
You want the old Chewing the Fat sketch of the guy in school pointing at the other people and just going wank, wank, good guy, wank, wank, good guy.
I don't think I've ever encountered that, but yeah, basically that. Except I'm thinking that's too many syllables. We just need to be going like, and we leave it up to the listener to decide whether those sounds were a positive one or a negative one.
And we'll call it modern art and make money.
I mean, it can be our breakdown of to what truly constitutes a podcast.
Exactly.
It'll be great. We should probably talk about the actual podcast that we're supposed to be recording right now, rather than waffling.
I mean, yeah, I suppose. Let's get on with this shit, shall we?
Okay, so today we are covering some episodes of Star Wars: The Clone Wars. Not to be confused with Star Wars: The Clone Wars, the movie, which was actually just a pilot for this show, or Star Wars: Clone Wars, which is an entirely different animated Star Wars show about the exact same thing.
Don't worry about it.
Star Wars: The Clone Wars is a very cool series. I don't know how our listeners if they've watched it or how they've interacted with it, because I never saw any of it until about 6 months ago.
Yeah, and
then I watched the whole run, and it is great.
Yeah,
really cool series. It starts a little slow, I think.
Yes, it does.
Because it starts very, very a good kids show.
Yeah,
and
it kind of remains that way. It just becomes more mature as time goes on, I think.
Yeah, it's still a show that kids can watch, but it matures into a much better version of that over time.
Definitely.
The two episodes that we're going to be looking at today is a two-parter, which the episodes are called The Zillo Beast and The Zillo Beast Strikes Back, which were episodes 18 and 19 of Season 2, which were first aired on April the 3rd and April the 10th of 2010.
Oh, God.
Weirdly, the UK actually got it a few days earlier than, the US.
Huh.
Don't know why that is, but...
Yeah, that's interesting.
Now, we've picked these episodes for a couple of reasons. One is that these episodes are kind of self-contained, so you don't really need to know a lot about the Clone Wars to talk about them.
Mm-hmm.
Two is that we haven't done any Star Wars yet on the podcast, and so,
it's
doing something with it.
It's something we've always talked about. We just didn't want to cover the movies because, that's been done to fucking death.
Yeah, that's kind of been done. I mean, I don't know. Maybe one day we can do The Rise of Skywalker, and I can watch you slowly.
I've seen it.
Spiral.
I've seen it. Don't worry.
Yeah, I know, but thinking about The Rise of Skywalker is something that people shouldn't do.
Yeah. Okay. Fair. It's It's another weaponized nostalgia bit, as far as I'm concerned.
As a bunch of flashy lights and noises, there's worse ways to spend your time. But
Yeah.
don't think about it. But yeah, other reasons, of course, is that the Clone Wars, as I've stated, is great.
Yes.
And just wanting to talk about it. And the other one is that these episodes in particular were a stealth way of making a Star Wars kaiju movie, and I am 100% down for it.
Correct.
And, you know, since we've done a handful of kaiju things in this series already, this felt like a good way of, like, you know, mixing up a bunch of different things. Also, it's an animated thing, and we've only done one animated thing previously, so, you know.
Fucking hell, have we? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, the only other one we've done is the Star Trek animated.
Oh, God, giant Spock. Oh, no, that's why I didn't
Big
remember.
Spock. It's all about Big Spock. I don't know if I mentioned this, but that was actually, like, mentioned in the Lower Decks. Big Spock was canonized in Lower Decks. So
good.
That's great. So would you like to explain the basic conceit of the Clone Wars for anyone that hasn't seen it?
What's the easiest way of doing that? It's these stories. It's basically the connective tissue between episode 2 and 3.
Yeah, so
and fun things happen, and it's honestly really good, and it actually goes further than... It actually goes into episode 3, actually, come to think of it.
Yeah, I'll talk a bit about that stuff at the end of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it basically follows a lot of... So, you know, in the prequel trilogy, you see all those Jedi who have, like, one line in the whole trilogy, and you go, wow... There's a lot of... Someone spent a lot of time designing them and giving them a silly name like Plo Koon.
Or Kit Fisto.
I wonder if they have a character because they're not in the movie.
Yep.
And the Clone Wars is the answer to that.
And this was something that was relegated to comics most of the time.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was fine.
Yeah, so it basically fleshes out the ideas of what happened between those two movies, of the escalating war between the Republic and the Confederacy of Independent Systems.
Mm-hmm.
And showing, you know, bits and pieces of how Sidious, you know, manipulated what happened.
Both sides.
Yeah, it's a really good series, and I do recommend you watch it.
I think honestly the best thing about it is fleshing out some of the stuff that they clearly just didn't in the movies that required fleshing out, like, I don't know, Anakin and Palpatine's relationship.
Yeah, I mean, Anakin in the Clone Wars is a different character to what he is in the movies, because he's, like, good.
Yeah.
He's got that darkness is there, and you can see it in his impatience and what would cause him to do the things that he does.
Yeah.
But it spends the time to also make him the impetuous hero.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the time, so you kind of understand, and, you know, I don't know. It's just it's handled a lot. I would say
this is also not a slight on Hayden Christensen. It's the directing and writing that's more of the problem there.
It's a slight on George Lucas, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
And don't get me wrong, I love George Lucas. He's made so many things I love, but he's not very good at directing people or writing without assistance.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this is not a podcast for bashing George Lucas. This is a podcast for saying how the Zillo Beast episode's great.
No, podcasts about bashing things just tend to get old really fast, and you feel like an asshole after a while.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing, why we've done so many things that are actually good in this series.
Or, you know, we like to show people that there are things outside of the big sci-fi shows that are fun.
And that's why we're doing Star Wars.
Well, I mean, no. Fuck you, first of all. But we tend to do, like, weird shit. And stay away from, as best we can, Star Trek and Star Wars. But it creeps in.
We're not doing very good on the Star Trek front, with 3 podcasts being about Star Trek.
I mean, we're fucking nerds. What do you expect? We try our best, and we don't tend to talk about, like... We haven't talked about Next Gen, actually, come to think of it, and that's the one that...
We haven't, no, apart from, you know, mentioning it in relation to other things. But yeah, shall I start off talking about the episode?
Please do. Okay.
So, the episode starts with the not quite normal version of the Star Wars theme that starts at the start of episodes of the Clone Wars. It's weird. It's like...
I really like it, though.
Yeah. And then it has a little message which comes up at the start of every episode. There's a little message. I've heard them referred to as Jedi fortune cookie messages, which I think is a good way of putting them.
Yeah, that honestly sounds like something Dave Filoni would call them as well. So
the name, the one on this first episode says, "Choose what is right, not what is easy."
Yes.
Because yeah, it's always something to do with the episode. Mm-hmm. And then we go into the intro of the episode. Now, the way the Clone Wars works is that at the start of it, you get a guy who sounds like he's from a World War II newsreel going, "Danger on Malastare!"
It's propaganda.
Yeah, it's war propaganda, basically, but they use him to, do the intros to each episode. Now, sometimes that means that it's a recap of the previous episode to make sure you're up to speed with what happened in the previous episode. But quite often, as in this, it basically allows them to jump into a story, in the middle of it, because they'll give information.
What they should have did with the prequel trilogy in the first place? Just jump in and start the Clone Wars?
I mean, I guess you could. I don't think the idea of seeing Anakin as a child is necessarily a bad idea. I just don't think it was handled well.
Okay, fair. Just saying.
But yeah, in this case, it's intro guy starts talking about how they're on the planet Malastare, and there's a huge battle between the separatist forces and the Republic. And these separatists are about to take the planet. Malastare is the home planet of the Dugs, by the way. That's the race that's Sebulba from the Phantom Menaces. So, the people with the arms where the legs should be and the legs where their arms should be.
And pod racing.
And they do a pod racing.
I think they might have invented it. I don't know, because I've got a vague memory of Qui-Gon mentioning that he saw pod racing on Malastare. And he didn't know it was out in Tatooine or something. Anyway, that does not matter to this episode.
But the reason the Republic want this planet is for its fuel reserves, not for any humanitarian reasons.
Of course.
This is actually a recurring theme in kind of the Clone Wars, is that despite the fact you are following the heroes of the story are like Republic troops and Jedi, it frequently does not hide from the fact that the Republic is doing things in this very cold, cynical way, and that war is fucked up. And
I tend to think that the Jedi especially are somewhat naive to how they're being used in some way.
Yes, 100%.
Because they haven't had to deal with this since the Old Republic.
Well, I mean, Jedis aren't supposed to be generals leading armies. Yeah. That's just not what they've
been put in a position where it's like, okay, we can do a lot of good with this, but they are getting taken advantage of like a motherfucker.
Yeah, and it leads Jedi to do very un-Jedi things a lot.
Yes.
Again, Clone Wars is really good.
It's a really good nuanced show, because it shows, even with the Confederacy and stuff, it's like the actual heart of the Confederacy are not bad guys.
They're equally as dickish as the Republic is.
Yeah.
It's like most wars in history, it is a case of two groups that are equal dicks to each other, making poor people fight for them.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then a lot of poor people die, and then that's history.
Mm-hmm.
And it sucks.
Which is why we watch Wars in Space instead.
Yeah.
Fucking no.
But anyway. Oh, this is going off the rails already. So we get from the intro, we also establish that Chancellor Palpatine has authorized the use of a new weapon, the Electro-Proton Bomb.
Which is an amazing B-movie name.
It is. And we see Anakin Skywalker, Mace Windu, a Republic scientist and the creator of the bomb, who is an alien fish lady called Dr. Bol. Mm-hmm. She looks a little like a Mon Calamari, but is like a Mon
really
Calamari.
Mon Cal?
Like a Mon Calamari if they were made from a sunfish.
You know what? Yeah. Good job.
They're also with the Doug leader, Doge Uris. And yes, his name is spelt the same as fucking Doge the meme.
Yeah, it's like an old fucking Italian thing.
Yeah.
Like Florence had Doges. I remember that much from fucking Assassin's Creed.
But yeah, they're with him in his imperial palace, and they're overlooking the deployment of this doomsday device. That's their words, not mine.
Yeah, they are pretty upfront about the fact that this is basically a nuke.
Yeah. We see an enormous army of battle droids of all types marching towards this palace. There's fucking thousands of them. And Dojarus tells Palpatine, who's on one of those hollow call things they have in Star Wars, that he'll not let have his people become separatist slaves. And Palpatine says, "Oh, don't worry, the electro-proton bomb will solve it, and don't worry, it'll only affect the droids."
Yep.
Dr. Ball is like, "It's perfectly safe, we've accounted for every probable outcome." And Mace Windu's like, "Well, it's the improbable that concerns me, Doctor."
Yeah, it's almost like Mace Windu is wise and shit, and not just Sam Jackson.
Nah, you read the script, that's why. We then see a tactical droid on the other side, which they're like droids that manage the tactics, of the droid armies. Yeah, because individual droids are mostly pretty thick. So they have these like leader droids that can go in the place of an organic. Funnily enough, because these ones all have like special aesthetic things on them. Some of them look more ornate than the others, and they tend to have their own designs.
Yeah.
Throughout the series, this one has a little symbol on his chest that is a stylized version of the Oxygen Destroyer from the first Godzilla movie.
Fucker, I didn't even notice that. That's so good.
So yeah, that's one little tick off on references to Godzilla.
There's going to be a lot.
So as the droids are marching forward with the tactical droid leading them, the clones and Dougs start to engage the droids. This goes hilariously badly for the Dougs.
Why did the Dougs try a cavalry charge?
Like, they charge a bunch of spider droids and they just get shot and all die.
It's fucking brutal. Like, these are, like, they are charging on top of, like, they have these mounts that are kind of the same as them, honestly. They've got the weird legs too, with, like, shock staffs. You're running into guns. Okay.
Well, they heard it worked out well for the Gungans in episode 1, but they didn't watch the movie. So.
Yeah, totally.
So they just heard that they won. They didn't, like, see how a bunch of Gungans got shot.
Yeah. Boy, that...
Yeah, it's a weird one. But then we see a bunch of Y-Wing bombers take off with their old design, which I really like.
Really have a lot more metal plating on them.
Yeah, if you don't know, Y-Wings, the ones you see in the original trilogy of Star Wars movies, are Clone Wars era ships, but with all of the fancy bodywork taken off them, because by that point they were breaking down all the time and it was easier just to leave the bodywork off. Mm-hmm. That's the canonical explanation and I love it.
Yeah.
But they take off with these bombers. One of them's the lead one's a red one, and it's got the bomb underneath it.
Do you want to talk about the pilot of this Y-Wing?
The pilot, his name is not mentioned in the episode, but his nickname is Goji.
Yeah.
And he has a Godzilla-esque design on his helmet.
Yep.
Again, for those keeping score of Godzilla references. Apparently the bomb, because there's that, what's it called? Is it Arabesh? The language in Star Wars that's like the written version of Galactic Basic, which is what when we hear them speaking English, that's Galactic Basic.
Yeah.
Or, admittedly, whatever language you see the film in, that's Galactic Basic.
Ah, yeah, good point.
But apparently in I think it's called Arabesh, the written version, it says, "This is for you, Dooku," on the fin of the bomb. Which is pretty fun.
I love, see when they start pulling in like stuff that soldiers did in like World War II and stuff. It's great.
This squadron with some fighter escorts. I'm just going to say this now. I know that the fighters escorting them are ARC-170s. I know that, but if I say the name of every single type of ship,
if we start going Y-wing, ARC 170, that other one I never remember because it was only in like episode 2, I think. It's not a V-wing; it's something else. Yeah,
like the Delta 7, like Jedi ones.
No, there's another
Delta 7.
Delta 7 Aether Sprite. Yeah.
But anyway, we're not going to get too deep into that. I just want to say that right now for the Star Wars fans because it gets very annoying for people that don't know the individual name of every single fighter.
There's a specific reason when I talk about or when we talk about sci-fi stuff, we don't just start spitting out random names of stuff, and it's because it becomes completely impossible to parse for anyone that doesn't know.
Yeah. But anyway, so they're being escorted by fighters, and they fly over this huge mass of battle droids, and then they let the bomb go. The EMP drops, and there's a huge fucking bang that destroys the core of the forces, and then like a big EMP wave comes out of it. It's not actually an EMP wave because it only affects droids.
Kinda.
Kinda, and it doesn't seem to affect all tech, so it's not a straight EMP, but it's basically an EMP for what matters in the story.
Yeah.
And it disables, the whole of the droid army. It messes with Anakin's hand a little bit because he's got a robotic hand.
The comms in the clones' helmets because they get a screeching noise through it.
Yeah, so it affects some things, but not others. Like Anakin's hand makes sense because it's a robot hand.
I did like that touch that it affected his hand.
It would presumably have the same tech in it that's in a droid. So, so Anakin turns and congratulates Dr. Ball for, congratulations on this bomb working just in time for the ground where the bomb was in to start having a massive cave in and just this big fucking sinkhole erupts in the ground, swallowing several clones.
And it swallows the fucking walkers as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it swallows like a bunch of walkers.
You get that lovely shot of the walker falling in, and like you can just see the guy in the cockpit being like, ah! Oh god, those poor bastards.
Oh, it's a weird... One of the weird things about the Clone Wars is that because the war is between droids and clones primarily, and you see a lot of them, it humanizes both of those things, but still gets both of them killed en masse all the time.
Like, we see clones getting, like, just blasted to bits all the time.
Yeah.
And you like to bring up something about Gungan debris?
Oh, yeah, there's an episode where Gungans get exploded, and you see it visibly on screen. You see their bits.
Yep.
It's you sit there and you go, did they forget they were making this for kids at this point?
It's weird.
Where am I? Sinkholes opened and they're like, oh, well, that's a problem. But the droid army is defeated and, search parties are sent for the missing troopers who disappeared down the sinkhole. The Dugs are preparing to sign a treaty with the Republic that will give them access to their fuel. All is good. But then Commander Rex, who is like Anakin's, like the group of clones that he commands, which is the 501st he commands, isn't it? 'Cause it's the one that he carries over into later on. Anyway, it's led by Commander Rex.
Yeah.
Who is the best clone.
Yeah, pretty much, honestly.
He's just the best clone. He gets a transmission saying that they've lost contact with the rescue team, so they need to go check it out. So Mace goes down into the crater in one of the little drop ships with a handful of clones. Everything's really, really dusty down there, so they can't really see very far. But, eventually they find the missing troopers.
Can I just very quickly comment on the clone gunships? The sound design for those things is awesome.
It is. They have a very fun sound. It's something I've always loved about Star Wars is how distinct.
Yeah, I mean it's even
different
from
ships.
The original movies. Ships have all had distinct sounds. Like everyone remembers the TIE fighter scream.
Well, it's like little things like you you know if a ship is like of Corellian design by the sound its engines make.
Yeah.
Like that sort of stuff. I'm like, oh, that's I like that. That's fun. But yeah, they go down into the thing in one of the gunships, and they find the troopers, and they're like, yeah, we're okay, but something else is down here.
Mm-hmm.
Mace is like, something's up, so he takes a few clones like with him to try to have a look around inside this crater, and he radios up to Anakin to say, yeah, you need to come down here, there's something up.
Mm-hmm.
Mace says, I have a bad feeling about this.
I think I did mention that. Yeah, I did in my notes. The bad feeling alarm has sounded.
Because someone says it in every Star Wars movie, but it does get a bit over the top in the Clone Wars because someone does say it in like most episodes.
Oh yeah,
it gets a bit silly. It's like there's like a Wilhelm scream in like nearly every episode as well.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that earlier. Yeah, there's like a Wilhelm scream in this one. I was so happy when I heard it.
Oh yeah, I am always overjoyed when I hear a Wilhelm scream. It's great. But yeah, as he says, I got a bad feeling about this, and then you realise that what they're walking on starts to move, and it raises up because they are walking on a giant creature. It raises its head and roars as the clones and Mace like roll off its back, and this thing raises to its full height. Would you like to describe this monster for me?
I was trying to work out when I was watching this how I would describe it. And it's difficult, honestly, because it's a cool design, but it's not super, like, you can't really say it's like this, but this. It's a big serpentine creature with segmented scale, like, armor scales, with 3 arms, 2 legs, a prehensile tail, and all of its limbs are really thin. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's a really weird design. Like, it's really spindly. It looks like it doesn't have bones.
Yes,
like
definitely.
It moves like a 1920s cartoon.
And not in a bad way.
No, yeah, not in a bad way. It's just,
I legit think this is a great design, and it's something that when you do animated shows is something you can do and, have a lot more fun with and, like, keep it in total. This is like, when people are like, I want a live action 40k show, I'm like, I'd rather it was animated so they could do stuff and it wouldn't look fucking weird.
Yeah. Also, the monster has a distinctive roar, which is, of course, the most important thing if you're going to make a kaiju.
Of course.
Yes.
It's an interesting kind of roar and sound escape that this thing has, because it's not menacing or evil sounding.
It's just a big monster. It's
the
thing that
roar
exists.
isn't like super bassy or anything,
But yeah, so big monster has appeared. At this point, Anakin flies in his starfighter and nearly flies into its head.
Yep.
And then continues to kind of fly around it a bit to distract it, so Mace and the clones can escape. The beast's tail whips up and catches Anakin's fighter, which causes it to crash into the side of the big crater that they're in. Anakin escapes, pulls R2-D2 out of the wreckage because, yes, R2-D2 is here too, don't worry about it.
Because of course he is.
Yeah, this is going to be a reoccurring thing because this is part of a long-running series. A lot of characters just show up. Like, named characters will just show up for a little bit because they're just part of this big ensemble cast. So, yeah. If a character suddenly appears, don't worry. That's just how the show is.
Yeah. Actually, we will come to that later.
So, yeah. So he pulls R2 out of the bracket where he sits, and then he climbs on him, and R2 jets away using those little rockets that he has in episode 2 and episode 3, but then lost at some point between then and the original trilogy.
Forgot he had them. I don't know.
He's probably gone. It's possible R2's a bit senile by that time.
Yeah. We, of course, before he escapes off out of the crater, Anakin does, of course, try to attack it with a lightsaber, and the lightsaber bounces off, which is still weird to me.
Yeah, he does a huge overarm leap, at the thing, and he's like, ha, and then his lightsaber just bounces off it, and he's just like, uh-oh.
Yeah. This is a total, like, I'm a fucking dork thing, but it feels weird that it bounces off. I kind of would have preferred it if he tried to, like, slice it and it just stopped. And he's like, because it's a laser sword rather than a solid object. Anyway, ignore me.
I mean, I guess if you think about like how it bounces off other lightsabers, that it does have something that is akin to like a solid kind of thing. And like when you see people fight it with things that have like a lightsaber resistant material, like a recent episode.
Start naming off right now because Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah, a recent episode of The Mandalorian had that where of like lightsaber blows being deflected by lightsaber reflective material.
Yeah.
So yeah. So it is a thing.
Yeah.
But I
it's
do
a thing. Like,
yeah.
I totally know it's a thing. I was into this shit when I was fucking yay high to grasshopper and all that. So yeah. So we now know
grasshoppers in Scotland.
Oh yeah, huge fucking grasshoppers. We now have the stakes kind of set out where it's like, okay, lightsabers don't work. It's more than likely most weapons will not work against this thing.
Yeah. So Anakin does ridiculous Jedi jumping up the beast's body and jumps off its head to land on a flying R2, who then takes him out the crater, because R2 just is a jetpack for this episode. Like,
yes,
that's just what he is.
And I have no problem with that.
That's fine, but it's just why he's here. Out of the crater, Dojuris is like, oh, that monster is a Zillo beast. It's these creatures, they used to roam Malastare, but they were killed off when the Dugs started harvesting the planet's fuel reserves, and they're supposed to be extinct, but this one obviously isn't.
Yeah.
We then go to that night where the Dugs are hurling the explosives at this thing in the crater. They've got these like weird, I don't really know how to describe them.
They're like a ballista, almost.
Yeah, that fires like a hovering disc. It's a really interesting design, but they're like hurling these down into the crater.
Yeah, this is something that Clone Wars does well when it gets to show off like how different cultures and species have different tech. That's obviously maybe the same level, but just different. Like, done differently.
And yeah, so that they're just hurling at it, and honestly, it's just annoying the beast more than anything else.
We do get a great shot of the beast being silhouetted against all the explosions going off around it, which is great.
And it's just like, stop it.
Fucking...
just quit it, man.
Hey, leave it. Fucking...
Mace confronts Doge and is like, why are they trying to kill this unique life form? What are you doing? And Doge retorts like... Actually, that's the point. Is Doge supposed to be his actual first name, or is it a title?
Well, I think it's a title. Okay.
I'll call him Eurus then. I'll call him that.
Well, if you want to be like me, I just called him Doug.
Doug.
Doug the dog.
Doug the Doug. Okay, we're calling him Doug now. Okay. He's like, okay, you released the bomb that let it out, so, like, we're going to deal with this.
Mm-hmm. And the Republic should help because they're the ones that caused this to happen in the first place.
And Anakin's like, yeah, but we did this to save your planet, and it was at your request. And he's like, look, you only did what you did for us because you want our fuel supply and you want that treaty signed. So if you want it signed, help us kill it.
Yeah.
Which I do like. I do like that it does straight up acknowledge how selfish the Republic's reasoning here was.
Although I do like that Mace is like, yeah, this is a living creature and it might be the last of its kind. Maybe we should not kill it.
Yeah.
Because, again, it's showing that, there's actually Jedi that are still fucking Jedi.
Yeah. Mace just says, well, I'm not going to do it. And Doge says, Doug says there's not going to be a treaty then.
Yep.
Anakin questions if this argument is even, worth getting into, because it's like, look, I know it's just one living thing, against, like, this is a big war, And Mace says, this is about the principle. And yeah, it shows that there is this conflict between a Jedi's principles and...
Yeah, and war.
And their roles as generals in the Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And quite a lot of the series deals with that. It's cool. They call up Palpatine, and Mace says that he thinks that they should capture it and relocate it somewhere safe. But Palpatine is like, yeah, it's a fascinating creature, but fuck it, who cares? Kill it.
Yep.
That is until Dr. Ball mentions that it could be worth studying since its scales are like blaster and lightsaber resistant, and then suddenly Palpatine's like, I'm listening.
Yeah.
So they concoct...
Palpy.
Yeah. They concoct a plan to let the Dugs think that they've killed it, and so securing the treaty, but actually they're going to relocate it somewhere safe to study it.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, their plan is they're going to hit it with a bunch of stun weapons between the plates of its armor, which should knock it out long enough to be able to transfer it. So they all head out in this fleet of stun tanks that are these hovering...
Are you really just going to call them stun tanks?
I'm going to get into it.
Okay.
They're these hovering tanks that never appear again after these 2 episodes.
Almost like because they were a reference to something.
Because they were a direct reference to the Maser weapons from the Godzilla series that actually originally come from War of the Gargantuas, which is the sequel to Frankenstein Conquers the World, which is where the monster Baragon comes from. Not to be confused with Barugon, who is a Gamera monster.
Gamera, yeah.
And yes, they're supposed to look like the Maser weapons, which are these big basically lightning guns that are in the Toho movies.
Yeah. And they're adorable because they're always models. Like little minis.
And they never really do much.
Yeah.
They're like these amazing weapons that barely work for their stated purpose. Like if they were weapons to fight other humans, they'd be outrageously devastating. But against kaiju, they never do fucking anything.
Yup.
But it does mix up seeing, fighter jets get knocked out the sky,
Yeah,
so
fair.
And regular tanks not working, so they threw in masers.
Yeah.
But yeah, these are a transparent reference to that, and that's cool. I'm very behind it. They meet up with Doug, who is happy that they've finally seen sense, bringing in the tanks to help them defeat the Zillo Beast. But he thinks they're fools if they think that those tanks are going to hurt it. Anakin says, "Oh no, we can do it." But Doug's just going to use their proven way anyway. Yeah. And
what is that proven way, Webb?
Well, they mentioned earlier that the Zillo beasts all died out when they started mining the fuel. And it turns out because the fuel that they mine on Malastare is viciously toxic to Zillo beasts. So they just try and fill this sinkhole with this glowing green fuel.
And drown it in toxic liquids.
Drown it in poison, basically.
Which is really fucked up.
Yeah.
If I'm going to get rid of a giant monster, at least try and do it somewhat humanely.
The Dugs are like, fuck that. So Mace just is like, yeah, that's all that's going to do is piss it off and it's going to climb out the hole. And Doug's like, nah, we'll handle it, it's fine. And so the beast climbs out the hole. While the Dugs start pelting it with explosives, which again doesn't work. Mace pulls out his lightsaber and threatens Doug, saying, "Look, just fucking stop it."
Yeah, I love
and
that.
The Doug.
Oh, that's
yeah.
For me, when it comes to the Jedi being a force for good, that's the point where it's like, okay, no, they're actually doing this, and it's like, no, fuck you, stop. Stop trying to kill the thing. You're making it mad and not helping anyone.
And Doug responds with what? We're innocent life forms too. But then that all becomes moot because at that point the Zillo Beast rises out of the hole, smashing the Doug ballista things out of the way and advancing on the line of tanks as the Dugs just scatter. The tanks all start to fire those stun beams, which, look exactly like masers. Yeah. And this bit is fucking gorgeous looking.
Yeah, because I've mentioned that in my notes as well. The big wide shot you get of the Zillo Beast standing up and the lasers crisscrossing at it, and it's really gorgeous. Because
the whole thing is underlit by the green from the all the fuel inside the crater.
Yeah.
So you've got
and the vapor and everything coming off it.
So it's just that. Yeah, whoever fucking like decided that the scene was going to look like that, fucking great, and everyone that put that together, worth watching both of these episodes solely for that shot. I was just like, that looks so good.
It looks amazing, and it's also like such a staple of a kaiju movie sort of shot.
Yeah. So the beast starts slapping these tanks around, just slapping some out of the way, picking them up, hurling them literally like a fucking kilometer.
Yeah.
But the beams it starts to make it look sleepy, and then eventually it kind of stumbles over and collapses. So the plan worked.
Oh, I should have mentioned earlier when I was describing the Zillo beast, it has kind of human eyes. Like, they're just enough that you can kind of relate to it, you know?
Yeah, that does kind of come up a little bit later. Because, it's got very, very, they tried to give it a more intelligent look than just a wild beast.
Yes.
So, with the thing unconscious, the Dugs sign the treaty, and the beast is loaded onto a transport. But Palpatine, who's again on his little hollow thing, informs them that after looking at the data, it's been decided that the beast shall be studied in a more controlled environment before it's going to be released, which means it's going to Coruscant.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm just going to mention it now because, because I know what nitpicking is like nowadays in these things. We all know that that's a horrendous idea, and it's clearly there just because it's a writing contrivance to give a giant monster a cool city to run through. But also, Jesus Palpy, what the fuck? It's Coruscant. It's the capital and the most populous planet in the Republic.
It's one of those where you go, this is a bad idea. This is just a bad fucking move. It should be noted there's a continuity error here because it states, it's been the Zillo Beast has all been loaded onto its transport, and then at the end of the episode we see it just being lifted up and a Venator Star Destroyer landing in the background, which is where it's going to be mounted into. So there's a bit of a continuity issue there. Huh. I think it's one of those ones where it's just like, that was obviously done, and you're like, shit, but that last shot is the right shot to end it on. So because that is the end of episode 1.
Yes.
So not a great deal actually happens in it, but it's
more of a visual thing than anything else.
But it's a good episode. But when you break it down, like, I know we've spent like 40 minutes talking about it, but when you break down what actually happens in it, there's not that much.
Yeah, there's not much that happens. It's really told like the entire story's told more visually than it is through dialogue or anything like that. And it's not a big story either. It's just big monster. Oh no!
Like most kaiju movies, they're not complicated stories. A lot of them. Episode 2, which is the Zillo Beast Strikes Back. The fortune cookie bit at the start is the most dangerous beast is the beast within.
It's almost like man was the monster all along.
So the Star Destroyer that's carrying the beast, you see it touching down on one of the huge buildings of Coruscant, because Coruscant,
it's fine.
Yeah, it's one of those words that when I have to say it out loud, I'm always convinced I'm saying it wrong, and I think that causes me to overcorrect.
It could always be worse. You could say Coruscant.
It is a horrible word when you start reading it.
Yep.
But yeah, so the big hatch opens and they offload the beast into this big
hangar?
round hangar thing.
Yeah,
that's on top of one of the buildings. Anakin, Mason, R2D2 are there.
As is Palpy, looking so fucking evil. It's not funny.
Yeah, they come to meet Palpatine. I can't remember who voices him at this point, but later on in the Clone Wars, he's like briefly voiced by Tim Curry, which is fascinating.
Amazing.
Because the other person who voices him is doing an Ian McDermott impersonation, and Tim Curry is just being Tim Curry, so his voice just changes for a bit. It's weird.
Good.
And a welcome change.
Tim Curry's always welcome, no matter what it is.
Yeah. But yeah, so, Mace, Anakin, and R2-D2 are there to meet the Chancellor, and they're like, Mace is like, this is a mistake, and Palpatine's like, it's fine.
Ridiculously bad idea, why are you doing this?
Yeah, and he's saying, if we unlock the secrets of this beast's armor, the sooner the war will be over. Which I'm not sure.
The idea being that you would have fleets of ships covered in an armor that cannot be damaged by, laser weapons and stuff.
Yeah. The studying of the beast is handed over to Dr. Bol, who assures Mace that it'll be well treated. It's not an issue. Back at the Jedi Temple, which is also on Coruscant,
yes.
Mace meets up with Obi-Wan Kenobi because it's been 3 seconds since a new character showed up.
Because it's Star Wars.
Who is like, this is a really bad idea. And is like, maybe we can get someone else to talk some sense into Palpatine. Back at the big dome place where the Zillo Beast is being held, it's like you see that it's being held in place with like a big gantry and force fields.
Yeah, it's a fucking frame just to hold it up.
Yeah,
and I hate this entire scene so much.
It looks painful, and the beast is no happy.
No.
Dr. Bol doesn't seem happy with anything they're doing that's hurting it. It's like, I don't like this, and it's like
there's droids lifting an armor plate. It moans in pain. Another one comes in to take a blood sample. It moans in pain again, and she's the one that has to be like, okay, stop.
Yeah. And tells Palpatine that if they could study the creature's scales, they might be able to synthesize the material to be able to boost Clone Trooper's armor, but they'd have to remove its armor to do that properly, which would be tricky and incredibly painful to the beast. Palpatine's just like, well, would it be simpler just to kill it? And Bol's like, no, we can't do that. Not only is it last of its kind, but it might be sentient. And Palpatine's like, no, it isn't. And the beast looks at him and is like,
"Fuck you!" Just
growls at him, and Bol does say well, it seemed to understand what you just said. Mm-hmm. So, and Palpatine has this whole fucking speech about how it's just an animal, and they have a moral duty to do anything that will hasten the war's end that is killing millions. Palpatine's a big fan of this speech in this episode.
Yeah, Palpatine's a big fan of, the moral priority to end a war so no more people can die, including by doing things that are highly immoral.
Almost like he's the bad guy.
Almost.
Bol concedes, but points out that, it's kind of a moot point because the thing's still invulnerable,
Yeah.
And Palpatine suggests, well, why don't you look into that fuel that seems to kill it?
Yeah, the one that dogs
use. And is like, well, you need to find a way to kill the beast, or we will replace you with someone who can.
Yeah.
In the not sure what it's called. I guess it's the Senate building,
Senate chambers or something like that.
Yeah, where Palpatine hangs, Palpatine's offices are and stuff. Anakin and R2 meet up with Padme Amidala, who is there with C-3PO and chatting to Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan has asked Padme to try and convince Palpatine that imprisoning the beast is wrong, and they're hoping to get Anakin to help. And Anakin's like, look, you have no idea what that beast is capable of. And Padme's like, well, it's what we're capable of that frightens me.
I love Padme.
Yeah.
I'm so glad she got more things to do in the Clone Wars shows.
Yeah. Anakin begrudgingly agrees to kind of go with her to go and speak to Palpatine. Who, when they basically say, look, this is wrong, what we're doing, it's wrong, it's dangerous, and it's stupid.
Yeah. This is
such a bad idea on so many levels.
Yeah.
And then Palpatine gives a very similar speech to the one he just gave to Dr. Bol about, I think he does use the term moral imperative again.
Yes, he totally does. I do remember that word coming up.
And Anakin says that he sees both sides because he's a filthy centrist.
But not the Star Wars version of a centrist.
Yeah, because centrist means something radically different in Star Wars. Don't at me. I know. And the meeting ends with nothing really achieved.
Yeah. Other than showing that Palpatine's already kind of got his claws into Anakin a bit.
Yeah, it does show like that Anakin he's been slowly brainwashed for years to make him susceptible to Palpatine's fascistic nonsense. Yeah, he's also kind of an idiot. So
Anakin's always been sort of okay with the dictator idea, I think, because he doesn't know any better.
He's susceptible to that idea of power.
Yeah.
Of the use of power over other people, and that the ends justify the means.
Yes.
Which
like killing children.
Yeah. Which is something that Palpatine manipulates, and that's this is like a low key version element of that, which is good to see, because obviously in the movies, because they have to rush through a lot, you only really see the extreme examples of it, which is why it looks so cartoonish. Whereas the series gives chances to have the subtle moments like this that show that he's been doing this for a long time, and it's not just you need to kill everybody. There's there's also all of the you need to agree with me on these mundane policy decision elements as well.
I think that's this show kind of helps me appreciate those movies more in a way, which is really bad, kind of.
Padme is obviously not best pleased with all of this.
No.
Back with the Zillo Beast, Dr. Ball has managed to synthesize the poison gas from the fuel, and has one last call to Palpatine, who's like, "Yeah, no, kill it." Mm-hmm. And she's like, she says the thing like, "I'm sorry, don't worry, it'll all be over soon." And they start gassing it with this outrageous green gas.
And I hate this entire scene as much as the scientist does, I think.
Yeah, and it's it's struggling because it's being poisoned, and it starts to break out from its restraints, tearing its hands out of these like force field generators and ripping apart the gantry. It smashes its way out of the lab, ripping open the doors. There's some clones outside.
Like there's some clones with walkers and stuff ready just in case, and the doors just fucking crush them.
This one's like, if this thing is as invulnerable as they say, what good are our blasters gonna do? I think one's named Cosmo. I think
that's the one. Yeah,
because one of the clones is like, "Oh, shut up, Cosmo."
There's something to be said about having a gun just so you feel a bit better about what's about to happen.
Yeah. So it smashes out its way and heads out into the city. Bol, whose little hovering thing that she was in, because that was knocked out the way by the beast. Mm-hmm. She exits. She's obviously like injured, and she just sees like this trail of destruction. I'd say leading into the city, but Coruscant is literally a planet-sized city, so there's no way it could go that wouldn't be leading deeper into the city.
Exactly.
But she sees it and is like, "Oh no."
Would it be deeper in the city if it went down?
Well, there is like the city under the city, like.
Yeah, exactly.
So basically, unless it jumps vertically upwards, it's getting deeper into the city. However you measure it.
Yes, there we go. Problem solved.
So we see a bit of the Zillo Beast rampaging through the city. Straight up, there's several civilians who straight up die here.
Yeah.
You see it like smash apart a huge sign that's playing a message from Palpatine.
That's clearly trying to like ease the fears about what's happening right now.
There's
a great shot in here because this is like it's obviously not the halfway point of how deep in the city it is, but it's inside all the skyscrapers enough that there's like walkways everywhere for like pedestrians, and it's the Zillo Beast is like jumping onto them and spinning around and using every limb, and it's really well animated.
Yeah, because I think you mentioned it earlier, but because it's got 3 arms.
Yeah.
One on its back, so it's like switching between arms. It's Spider-Manning it, basically.
Yeah. And like twisting around as it goes. It looks really good.
So it's kind of swinging between that. Bol tells Palpatine, we're going to need more time to synthesize more poison gas. Yep. Oh, God. Zillo Beast has a fight with some LA-AT gunships.
Doesn't go well.
Doesn't go well. Didn't they learn from the TriStar Godzilla movie?
They are literally doing the TriStar Godzilla bit. I just realised.
It wouldn't surprise me if it's a direct reference to that bit.
Yeah.
But also, it wouldn't surprise me if it wasn't, because most people try and forget the 1998 Godzilla movie exists.
The bit I try and forget is the fucking theme, the music video with Jimmy Page.
You don't like Jamiroquai and Jimmy Page?
Wasn't Jamiroquai? It was someone else.
Oh no! Shit! No, I'm thinking of, because there was the Jamiroquai song that was in it, but that wasn't there. Yeah. Fuck. Was it Puff Daddy?
I think so. Yeah.
Wow, I'd not thought about that song in a long fucking time.
Jimmy, you were not that hard up for cash. Fuck you, mate.
It's a paycheck, isn't it? But anyway, so the Zillo Beast starts climbing a huge skyscraper, because if you're a giant monster in a city, what else is there to do?
I mean, this is the reason that you'd bring it to Codison, right?
Yeah. Because if the first episode's very Godzilla, the second episode's very King Kong.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
And so it climbs a big thing, and then you see it looking at the Capitol building where Palpatine is, and it's like, okay, that's where I'm going. So obviously, it's fucking after Palpatine.
Yup.
So inside that building, it, like, you know, there's still the people from the meeting earlier still all kind of there together. Mm-hmm. And there's a big thud, you know, as this thing lands on top of it. And Anakin's like, yeah, we should probably leave for the lower levels, as the Zillo Beast looks in through the window.
Yes.
And Palpatine seems to visibly do a small poo. Yeah. And is like, yeah, that's a good idea.
The Zillo Beast isn't just looking into the window, it's staring at Palpatine. It doesn't see anything else other than target.
So, you've got Palpatine, Padme, Anakin, R2, C-3PO, and one of Palpatine's guards head into like
dead meat.
Yeah, head into an escape craft they've got, and you realise, wow, there is a lot of characters in this episode.
Yeah, and there's about to be more.
Yeah. And so they try and leave in this little speeder thing, and the Zillo Beast just grabs it as it's going away. On the ground, you've got Mace and Obi-Wan, who are organising those stun tanks from earlier. But Yoda and a character who I had to look up the name of.
Oh, it's Aayla Secura.
Yeah, Aayla Secura, because I can never remember her name, who's a twin.
I just remember her so well because she gets absolutely punked out during Order 66, and it might be one of the worst I saw.
Yeah, it's rough.
It's a fucking rough one.
But yeah, so her and Yoda are like, well, I don't think does she have a speaking line in this?
She does. She has a weird accent.
Yeah.
I think they decided to try and give her a French accent in the show for some reason.
But Yoda basically says, yeah, don't shoot at this thing. I don't know if you've noticed, but it's got the Chancellor in its clutches.
It's literally got Palpatine in its hands in a little box.
And meanwhile, the Zillo Beast is like busy trying half-heartedly to crush the transport.
But more just toying with its prey.
Just kind of messing with it. Just fiddling with it, you know, like...
It just wants to see how much it can make Palpatine completely shit themselves.
Basically, I really associate with it because, like, when I'm recording a podcast or whatever, I have to resist the urge to, like, I've got, like, a thing in my hand now. I have to resist the urge to, like, mess with it and then drop it all the time like this. I have to resist the urge of doing that. And that's basically what the Zillo Beast is doing. It's just got something in its hand and it's messing with it and it's going to drop it during its podcast. And
I have literally been fidgeting with a pencil this entire time. Exactly.
We are Team Zillo Beast here.
Damn right.
Very, very relatable character. Anakin decides to slice the transport in half from the inside with his lightsaber.
Yep.
Palpatine gets to say the "I have a bad feeling about this" line in this episode. observing from the ground, like Mace is like looking at this through binoculars, and he's like, I just want to read this full little bit of
it's so good.
This little exchange. So Mace goes, "What is Skywalker doing?" And Obi-Wan responds, "It appears to be one of Anakin's improvised plans." How can it be a plan if it's improvised? Like, don't worry, just catch them when they fall. And then Rex comes in and is like, "A lot of the General's plans involve falling." Because Rex is the best.
Rex is the best. Obi-Wan's a sassy dickhead.
Yes. So Yoda and Ayla. So this is the problem, because I completely forgot that character existed, and I forgot her name. I've forgotten how to pronounce it as well.
It's okay, I understand.
So Yoda and Ayla go off to distract the beast to buy them time. Basically, they jump on it. They jump on the beast from a gunship with their lightsabers drawn, knowing it won't do anything, but then just kind of run up and down it to be annoying.
Yes. I at first was like, why did you even pull your lightsaber? It's like, oh, right, wait, no. You're just going to use it as a big, like, shiny, bright stick to distract the Zillo beast. Good, okay.
Yeah, basically they're being, I was going to say human, but neither of them are human. They're being, like, living laser pointers at a cat.
Yes.
Like, so inside the transport, Anakin finishes cutting through it, and the front half of the craft falls out of the beast's hands.
Not before Anakin can say his catchphrase from Episode 3. This is where the fun begins.
And it, some of the passengers from it get spilled down the side of the building, because the building's like a big dome-shaped thing. So
it's a mushroom shape, yeah.
Yeah. So some of them are sliding along. Basically all of them apart from the guard and Palpatine are sliding along. They're still Palpatine and the guard are still in the front of the craft.
Yeah.
So as they're sliding down, R2 saves him and C-3PO with a little grappling hook thing.
And it's adorable.
Anakin saves Padme from going over the edge. Palpatine and the guard, who are still in the front section of the craft, are sliding down the side, and it would fall off the edge, but Obi-Wan and Mace hold it still using the Force and sort of stop it from falling off. Mm-hmm. A bunch of gunships join in on Yoda's Operation Annoy the Zillo Beast. And
Operation Pain in the Arse.
Yeah, and pelt it with fire as the Jedi continue to just run up and down it like absolute wankers. The Zillo Beast then starts going for Palpatine, but R2 goes to save him, because I think Anakin's like, R2 save him, and so R2 jets down, and Palpatine climbs on it in a very undignified manner,
which is great,
as R2 behaves like a jetpack again. Because that's just what he does in these episodes.
Yeah, am I imagining things, or is there a scene in one of the episodes of the Clone Wars where he has R2 has little pop out bits to step on his legs so you can jetpack around on him?
Shit, I think that might be a thing.
I seem to remember that, and it makes me so happy.
It's. Honestly, I guess the thing is, it makes sense during the Clone Wars that
R2's tricked out to fuck,
because Anakin would definitely just put extra shit in him.
Oh yeah,
and that's what astromechs are anyway. They're Swiss Army knives,
yeah.
They're like, what if a GPS was also a TomTom? What is it? No, what was it? What did I say? I wanted to say TomTom, but I realised that that's a really dated reference. But I meant to say, what if a GPS was also a Swiss Army knife? Was what I wanted to say, and I ruined it.
It's okay.
Oh,
it's okay, man.
It's a long day. It's a long day.
It's a weird day.
It's a weird day. Weird long day.
It's weird enough that this episode almost made me cry. So
it's sad. Yeah, it has sad points.
It does.
Palpatine zips away on R2. It's very silly. The guard is unceremoniously crushed to death because R2 could only take one of them.
Yeah, those elite Senate guards that I'm sure are a dime a dozen.
You get him in like a 12-pack, it's fine.
Yeah.
So everyone that's still alive, including Yoda and Ayla, all run away in like one big group as Palpatine gives the order for the gas bombs to be used. Gunships kind of fire these flares up in the air, so the beast looks up at them, and it means it kind of opens its mouth gormlessly whilst it's doing that, so that gives them a chance to fire these gas bombs right down its fucking throat.
Yup.
And it's just like, ow, fuck, ow, that's horrible. Stop it.
This bit was a hard watch for me.
Yeah.
Because it is not a quick or dignified death.
No, it's just pelted with and just full of green gas.
And the gas is like belching out of its mouth when it tries to scream, and it's like, oh my god.
And you've got the Jedi sort of use the Force to like keep the gas from like infecting the people on the ground.
Yeah, they make a little kind of shield bubble, basically.
Because presumably the fumes in that instant would also be pretty deadly to most things, I would assume.
We should mention, before they did the little shield thing, they were out running the gas cloud, and it just overtakes C-3PO.
C-3PO is just nature's chew toy.
Yeah.
And so the beast lets out one final roar and just keels over, sliding down the side of this building. It's a really well done scene. It's sort of a mixture of King Kong and it really reminded me in like the thing of using a chemical to kill this thing in a fairly undignified way of the South Korean kaiju movie Yongari.
Okay.
But unlike Yongari, the Zillo beast does not shit itself upon death.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how Yongari ends.
I need to watch that again.
It gets like this powder that like it's like deathly allergic to, and shitloads of it gets put on it, and it just fucking dies, and it appears to shit blood as like upon death.
Yeah.
Which is a choice.
Yeah.
But the Zillo Beast doesn't do that, and we're all thankful for that.
Yeah.
But it is.
Then I would have just said, I'm not doing this episode.
Yeah. But that is the end of the Zillo Beast. The next morning, we see the body of it being carted away. Palpatine telling the entire cast that the beast's death will not be in vain. And then he takes Dr. Ball aside and gives her orders to clone it. Where he's set up for a sequel that never happened.
Yeah. I've got Son of Zillo Beast here. I wasn't sure what to call the or what to decide the next episode would be.
Zillo Beast Strikes Back. Personally, I would have done like Raids Again. That's what I would have done.
On the nose.
Oh, come on. Is there any part about these episodes that wasn't really on the nose about what it was referencing?
Fair.
And yeah, that's where the episode ends, and that's the Zillo Beast duology.
You just like the fact we have a use for that word.
Yes. What did you think of these episodes? Because I think they're really cool.
I think they're great. And I hate seeing creatures, real or imaginary, being like tortured isn't the right word, but poked and prodded like that. It just
yeah. One part I really like about these episodes is how, given the nature of it, like normally everything's part of like Palpatine's grand plan because he's playing both sides of the conflict against each other. Because like the fucking separatists have basically got nothing to do with this episode outside of its setup at the very start.
Yeah.
So this was something that Palpatine wasn't part of Palpatine's giant plan, from what we can tell. So this thing was just a total fuck up on his part from start to finish.
It's really nice to see it just blow up in his fucking face.
So that's kind of fun because
there's an enjoyment and a catharsis in that.
Now watch, there'll be like some fucking tie-in novel, because there always is when it comes to Star Wars. It says,
as long as it doesn't try and make out... Yeah. As long as it doesn't try and make out that Palpatine's the good guy because he was setting up for the Yuuzhan Vong War, I'm happy.
That is my least favourite part of all Star Wars canon.
Yeah.
And there's some bad bits of Star Wars canon, new and old.
Do you want to talk about Luke Skywalker? The clone of Luke that was from the hand that he lost in Empire Strikes Back, and it was just Luke with the name was Luke with 2 U's in it.
You know, I didn't know about that one. Luke.
Yep, Luke.
Oh god, that's a plot point in New Doctor Who as well.
Yep. And it was done better than that.
How has that same ridiculous idea been in 2 of the biggest sci-fi series? Oh my god. Okay. Yeah, I really like this, and yeah, obviously I'm a mark for it because I'm a big kaiju fan. And so it's fun seeing the little nods they did, and like, you know, Zillo. It was obviously, you know, it was picked to be like Zillo, you know.
Yeah.
So it was like right from the off, they were making it very much, you know, play into that thing. And I think it really does tell a speedrun version of quite a lot. Like it's, you know, very similar to not only Godzilla, but like other movies from the time that aren't necessarily kaiju movies, but giant monster movies, like
for sure.
The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. It has close similarities to that as well, which is not surprising considering that both Godzilla and Beast from 20,000 Fathoms are incredibly similar anyway. And yeah, as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of King Kong in that second episode, and I see that you've just sent me a link to Luke Skywalker, and you know what? At the end of this episode, I'm going to have a look at it, but I can't do that now because I will get too distracted. At Luke. Luke. But yeah, I think it does it tells this kind of fairly generic kaiju story, but setting it in Star Wars and against the background of the Clone Wars, I think it does a really good job of doing it.
The big thing about doing something like that is like when you do a tribute to something else in like a big franchise, the big hope for me anyway is like it might get people to look at that other thing. You know?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we did our tribute to kaiju. Maybe you would like actual kaiju films or something like that, you know?
Yeah. And now I'm just thinking of like a Star Wars done kaiju on screen anyway. At any other point in there, I remembered there was a crate dragon in season 2 of The Mandalorian.
Oh shit!
Yeah, that's awesome. A very fun. That is a very fun episode.
Crate dragons are fucking rad.
Yeah. And all because they were like, oh shit, we should probably name what that big skeleton is in the background of A New Hope. It's a crate dragon. And whoever made that decision didn't realize what that would become.
No.
But yeah, it is good. I don't have much trivia for this one. I guess because there's not really that much like production stuff for an animated series in the same way. But the Zillo Beast didn't really appear in that much else after this. I think it's in like a Lego game somewhere. But apart from that, its only other appearance is in a recent Age of Resistance comic, Kylo Ren 1 specifically.
Oh yeah, I know about this.
Where Kylo kills one.
Yep, because he's so tough and strong.
I've heard in general the comics that have been done for like the sequel trilogy, like tie-in stuff, have generally been pretty good. But I've not read any of them, so I honestly can't
I've read a bit of it. And yeah, it's pretty good. It's we're out of the kind of era of the expanded universe when it just became too much. And yeah, we've now got stuff like the really good Darth Vader comics. They're really good, and I need to make you read them.
I have heard they are phenomenal. I do mean to give them a shot.
Yeah.
There is also a promotional poster. I don't know if you've looked at it, which if you just search for like Zillo Beast poster,
Okay, let's do that on my phone right now, because I remember you telling me about this yesterday and I forgot.
Because basically they made a poster that was intentionally imitating the old Japanese kaiju movie posters.
Good.
But it's all and to sort of lend into it as well. It's all in fucking Arabesh or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
The base, the Galactic Basic written form. So it also has that, you can't read it like nature of it.
Yeah.
To make it, tie into a Japanese monster movie. And yeah, I just thought that was a really cool little touch. That was put out specifically for Zillo Beast Strikes Back.
Right. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, I just thought that was cool. But yeah, that's all I've really got for like trivia, I'm afraid.
Mm-hmm.
I'm afraid. The only other thing I really wanted to say was, as I mentioned earlier, the Clone Wars is really, really good. If you're into Star Wars and you haven't for some reason watched it, please go and watch it. And if nothing else, you should watch it, because then you will be able to appreciate the last 4 episodes of the Clone Wars, which I want to go on record as saying fucking whip dick.
They do.
And by that, I mean it is a wonderful antidote to a fumbled execution of the same time period in Revenge of the Sith, but from a different perspective.
Yeah.
I reworked, so I watched through the whole run of it, like I mentioned, like 6 months ago, and like a week ago, I just watched the last 4 episodes again, because they're great. Even down to little things like the last after the first few bits, it stops using the standard music of the series and isn't even using like Star Wars sounding stuff. It has such a unique audio to it that really helps sell it.
I really need to just get back into watching of the Clone Wars, because I dropped off at one point and I started doing other things and then forgot. You know what it's like.
100%. I mean, not as good as the Clone Wars, but I was the same with Sequest DSV that I've been recently watching. I've still got the last half of the last season to watch, and I'm like, oh shit, yeah, I need to do that.
I also think there was a sequel series to that.
I don't know, because Sequest DSV sort of morphed into a slightly different series in its last season, so...
Maybe it's that I'm thinking of then. Anyway, let's not get into Sequest DS fucking V.
But yeah, it's good. These episodes are good. The overall series is good. But I also wouldn't blame you if you kind of skimmed the first few seasons of it, because there's not much that happens to do with the wider plot.
Yeah.
In those first handful of seasons. Even this, as good as it is not relevant to the overall story of the Clone Wars, and it's one of the reasons why it's one where there's a lot of good stories in it, but I wouldn't want to cover in this series because they're sort of too tied into the overall narrative to sort of talk about in isolation.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a good series. Do you have any final thoughts about the Zillo Beast?
Honestly, yeah, I just really, really enjoy these 2 episodes, and I think the fact that they actually made me feel a thing for a big, dumb, silly CG monster is testament to it. You know? Good shit all round.
So I've opened up Luke Skywalker.
Oh, have you seen who he was created by? It's another clone with 2 U's in their name.
Oh, fuck off.
I know all the secret stuff.
So, the clone that Jorus Kaboth created to test me with was the fulfillment of my vision in the cave on Dagobah.
Yeah.
That was a metaphor.
Yeah.
The reality was no less horrifying than the illusion. Imagine looking at your reflection in the mirror and seeing only an enemy. I mean, I guess at least he was born in 9 ABY and died 9 ABY.
He also had Luke's original lightsaber.
Okay, that kind of makes sense. Okay, can you quickly fill on me? Why did they decide to call him Luke with two U's?
I don't fucking know.
Like, what's the possible explanation?
I don't remember who the fuck the writer was for that, but the clone thing, yeah, was a thing.
You don't know who to blame.
Okay, Star Wars has, especially the old expanded universe, has a thing about cloning. I think there was 2 clones of Palpatine.
Yeah.
And one of them was called Triclops, aka Trioculus.
It was Timothy Zahn. That's who we can blame.
He did the fucking Thrawn books.
Yeah, it was in the final Thrawn trilogy book, apparently.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Damn it, Zahn.
Yeah, no, I can't. I'm not going to read any more of that. That is, I just want to know why he's.
Luke was killed by Mara Jade Skywalker.
Of course. Fucking Luke. You have to pronounce it like you're trying to figure out how to pronounce an umlaut. Like,
yeah. Luke.
Like, you're failing at it. Don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah,
but,
no. Like, failing at trying to pronounce a word with an umlaut.
They could have called. I can't. See, this is the type of shit when I talk about the old Star Wars expanded universe. Why I'm glad it's dead.
Yeah.
It's because of things like Luke.
You know what's good to call a clone of Luke Skywalker, or just a clone in general that's evil and Sith? Star Killer.
Yes. But admittedly, Star Wars has basically been a long stretch of writers finding excuses to call things Star Killer.
Star Killer base. Yep.
But
I'm glad I could entertain you with the idea of Luke Skywalker.
I feel it's good content. It's good content. Just
and
hearing
of course,
me.
Jorus Kabolas.
I presume that's the reason. It's just, I have 2 U's in my name, so I'm going to give the extra U to Luke as well to signify that it's him. I mean, personally, I would have just called him like Jeremy or something, because you know how Star Wars is. Someone's called like fucking
this is
Ping,
the series
Ping
for someone
Yodel Ho, and then his mate Dave.
I was going to bring up Sleaze Bagano, but I think you just won.
It's like this. It's great. I legit love it. How some people are just called like, this is like Paul or whatever.
Yeah,
it's great. But yeah, it's marvelous. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I don't fucking know what happened there at the end.
You're going to be reading about that all fucking night now.
I'm not. The moment I stop this recording, I am going to purge all thoughts of Luke out of my brain.
Not before we tell Snipe about it and just annoy her by saying Luke all the time.
I think I might just go into her after I've recorded this and just start talking to her about Luke Skywalker, but pronouncing it Luke, and see how long it takes before she throws something at me.
Good.
On that note, where can people find you on the internet?
God, at Longfang, at Longfang91 on Twitter and Longfang91 on Twitch. Easy enough.
Cool. You can find me at WibDoesTweets on Twitter and on YouTube at Snipe and Wib and at WibDoesStuff.
And you also stream on Snipe and Wib.
Yes.
On Twitch.
I was trying to give the shortened version for brevity.
Yeah, but I like to be a fucking shill.
Yeah.
There's also the Snipe and Wib Patreon.
There is a Snipe and Wib Patreon.
Yes.
And stuff.
Yes.
Stuff. I'm on the internet. You'll find me. Many people have tried to lose me, and they can't.
4,000 people, in fact, have found you on Twitter.
Yeah, that was a little terrifying. Sometimes I have to like take into account like, if I say some like really like foolish nonsense, then some absolute buffoonery, 4,000 people at least see it, and that gives me pause for reflection. But I mean, I still do the utter clown shoes nonsense, but I at least I at least, I take into account that is happening.
Yeah, yeah.
But that is the end of the podcast.
Yes.
The podcast is over now. You can all leave.
Goodbye.
The recording is going to continue, but you need to leave.
Yeah, we're just going to make it awkward and just sit here in silence. Goodbye.